and we want to welcome our first guest, Asil Attar. I would like to give the stage to Asil to start the day with her opening speech. Asil.
Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone? Inshallah khair. Good.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you again for hosting me. It's amazing watching what you've been doing, honestly. Truly change making. All right. So wonderful. So do you want me to go ahead and start immediately?
Yes, you can. More than welcome to give a little bit of introduction about all the exciting stories that you have to share.
Well, first and foremost, let me sort of thank you once again, Marta, for hosting me on this and giving me a chance to talk about really a subject that I absolutely, love and very, very passionate about, and so excited really to kind of, share with you on your platform. So today we're going to be talking about empowerment. And of course, I'm going to be sharing empowerment with you from what it means to me from my perspective and sort of over the many years and what I've learned, my learnings as well, and what I've been taught, because I think empowerment is a very sensitive subject when you speak about it, and is something that really truly has to be from one's own personal perspective. So maybe I can introduce a little bit about myself first and foremost. So I've been in the business of fashion and retail for around 30 years now. So a very, very long time in the industry. And during this time, I've had many opportunities to meet some incredibly unique individuals. You can imagine thousands and thousands of people. And every single time I've met these individuals, they have all taught me that something extra when it comes to empowerment. And I think without that experience, I wouldn't be sitting here today with the likes of you and sort of talking about this subject. I'm, of course, very passionate empowerment ambassador. I'm a very empowered and proud Muslim woman. That gives me great pride. My ability to see the potential in others is very, very exciting for me. I like to think it's one of my gifts, and then sharing my knowledge, passionate about sharing knowledge as well. And I think one of my greatest examples is truly constantly referring to, I think for me, the greatest Muslim woman, and of course that is the, Khadija, the wife of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu salam. So she's a beacon of shining light and empowerment, an entrepreneur, one of the first empowerment working women, and so for me, she's always a reference, always a reference, and something that sort of keeps me grounded. And I try, like I said, if I can do a fraction or a grain of what she was, then I think I'd be very proud of myself. But I think I also want to talk about the fact that, I'm an empowerment ambassador, and that means I don't really push the fact that I'm a woman empowerment ambassador, because empowerment for me is not gender specific. It's about empowering, the male and female audience and people that are surrounded by me and people that I meet. So it's not exclusive to women. Though I am a very proud, empowered Muslim woman, for me, if I can empower men and women, then, half of my job is done. So that's something that I sort of wanted to make sure that I set up from the get-go. So this is for everyone, right? Hopefully for everyone that's going to be listening. So first of all, I want to talk about what the definition of empowerment is. And it's fascinating to me because everyone has their own perspective. But if we look at it from simply, empowerment from a dictionary point of view, it says it's the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. And then it says it is also defined by giving power to someone to do something. So very interesting, the word process for me in that statement. It is a process, and a process of becoming stronger. And I think certainly in my journey, becoming more stronger and more confident is something that has been an ongoing part of my, life, especially my career of the 30 years. And it's taken me many experiences and many challenges and many setbacks and many, many, many learnings to be the empowered individual that I am today, or what people perceive me to be. Because at the end of the day, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. But I'm going to talk about specifically, I think, something that is very much part of who I am, and a little bit about my background, which I talk about a lot in terms of the people, the two individuals that inspired me greatly throughout my life and my childhood. And of course, they are my mother and father, Allah yarhamhum. And for me, they were the true example of empowerment. I mean, we grew up in a household where my father was a pioneer for solar energy in the 1970s, and one of the very few individuals in the world at the time that was talking about, the power of nature, the respect that we had to have for our environment, and the power of influence as well. And my father was remarkable because, he was, and my mother taught us faith, ethics, our values, humility. He never compromised on his beliefs. My father was a man that was very sirat al-mustaqim. If something was right, then it was right. And if it was wrong, it was wrong. There was no compromise, no discussion. And, as kids, we watched my father walk out of many jobs, many very big, important jobs, because he was grounded by his beliefs. And that was empowerment, because watching him make these big decisions and being so strong in his conviction taught us at a very early age a number of things. One is not to compromise on your belief, never. And the other one is we learned from him his remarkable humility, because he championed his life through really helping and empowering so many families, putting their children through education, being charitable, and never outspoken about it. He was very quietly doing these remarkable things, but we watched an example. And of course, that hugely fueled our sense of empowerment, to watch him stand for what was right and sort of be the hero for many, many people. And then on the other hand, my beautiful mother, Allah yarhamha, she was remarkable, hardworking. She always had a job, raised 4 kids. We always remember my mother as, holding very strong roles as well. And then, of course, managing her family, spending all the time balancing work, family, and then teaching us, of course, very much, again, the faith and the beliefs and the values. And one thing I'm indebted to my mother for is because I left the Middle East when I was very young, at 2 years old, from Iraq. I'm originally Iraqi, and we were brought up in the UK. And so my mother would sit down every single day when I was very, very young and teach me how to read and write Arabic. And little did I know that that was going to be one of my greatest empowerment tools, the ability to speak, read the Quran, speak a language, and be able to emotionally engage with the many people that I've met throughout my life, of course, being in the Middle East. So incredible examples as I was growing up, and amazingly strong people. But what was even more interesting is that I don't actually recall a time when my parents were ever healthy. So I talk to you about them, but at a very young age, my father, at a young age for me, I think I was about 7 or 8, my father had his first heart attack at 40 and continued to have a heart attack year after year after year, and was incredibly unwell and functioned with 25% of his heart up until the last moment in his life, and had many complications. And my mother, on the other hand, had Parkinson's disease when she was 38 years old. So for the 40 years of her life, was very unwell, and then the latter 15 years completely immobile. So that is the memory that I have also of my parents. But what's beautiful about that is, through that memory, I still am able to reference these remarkably empowering things that they did. Because despite their physical ailments, mentally, They were constantly empowering us as children, enabling us to believe in ourselves, giving us our confidence, still striving, still working, still having their opinions and thoughts, and still leading us by example. So I think I'm more than blessed to have been raised by two individuals who instilled that sense of empowerment, because without growing up and seeing, despite their challenges, they continued to enlighten us with their amazing zest for life and their ability to give relentlessly. And that's something that I'm very, very proud of, that I've, completely taken, I'd like to think, from my parents. And as long as their mind was strong, then that was good enough for them, But for me, where did that affect me, and how did I learn from that? Well, of course, I've been in a very brutal business career, the business of fashion and retail, and the competitiveness and the nature of that industry is very, very tough. And of course, many people will not stop at any consequence to gain in that career. And simply surrounded by such a competitive environment, one thing that was very grounding for me is my tremendous amount of faith, because that is the one guiding principle that I have that guides my every decision. So 30 years in the business, 15 years was spent on the creative side, and the latter 15 years was spent as a CEO of very big groups. Now you can imagine being a CEO in very competitive environments and having to constantly achieve and perform. For me, it was all about my belief, and what was right was right, what was wrong. And this is how I took every decision in any business that I was in. And that sort of baffled people, because sometimes you make these really big sweeping decisions with no compromising, because you know that they're right. And for me, every single time I would go back into my faith and gauge that. That was my meter. And I remember telling somebody at one point that many years ago that, I don't know, they were asking me about my reporting line and my shareholders and the board that I was reporting into, of course, as a CEO. And for me, I said to them, I report to one. I don't report to a CEO or my CEO. I don't report to a group board or shareholders. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is who I report into every day. They are just there as a process of respect, but my decisions leading these important organizations rest with only one. And that is something, let me tell you, when you're in a competitive environment, being grounded like that, for me, was my saving grace, because it gives you that sanity, knowing that everything you do reflects on your faith and your values. But then equally the pressure that you have, because people don't quite understand. You're supposed to compromise on things in order to get ahead. And for me, that was never an option. So that is something that also fuels my sense of empowerment, right? It's very important to me. And of course, so that's something that if you ask anybody who's worked with me, they would definitely reference this strength that I had that completely drove my passion. And it was truly my belief, and nothing would shift that. That was my foundation. And the other thing is, and I'm telling you, I mean, despite, so many challenges, my career was not smooth. People look on the outside and they think how fabulous and how glamorous it is. Well, let me tell you, being a woman in an industry that 0.2% are women, and being in a global space and working specifically with male-dominated industries, it is not easy. But I'm always talking to the people that I coach and mentor, or talks like this, and I'm saying that I earned my roles because of merit, because of knowledge, because of the confidence that I had gained through my experience. So despite the fact that I would sit in an interview knowing that there were 15 men outside that door wanting to go for that same CEO role, I got it because of the knowledge and my command for respect. So again, that's something that what I'm alluding to is knowledge is what gives you empowerment, you know, and merit is what gives you empowerment. That ability to understand and critique yourself empowers you. Having self-awareness empowers you. All of these elements are factors to what empowerment really means, certainly from my perspective. Now, the other thing that people would recognize that know me is that I'm also very, very passionate about coaching and mentoring. I have done that for many, many years. And why do I do it? Because there's nothing more rewarding than enabling another individual and arming them with the right tools and knowledge to be able to achieve their dreams and goals. That means that empowerment, as a definition, means really you need to be selfless. Because remember when we talked about the fact that means it gives power to someone, that you are enabling someone. So therefore, that is why I coach and mentor, because knowledge transfer for me is incredibly important. Just because I've gained it throughout my 30 years doesn't mean that I hoard it for myself and I keep it inwards. The more that I gain, the more that I choose to share, and that in turn empowers me, because there's nothing more exciting than seeing your mentees or the teams that you coach thrive and become successful individuals because of the knowledge that you have transferred to them. So that's very important. And also, I want to talk about the fact that, you know, empowerment has the word power in it, which a lot of people misunderstand and maybe abuse sometimes. So having that power doesn't mean that you are basically parading your knowledge, boasting your confidence, showcasing yourself. That is not what empowerment is. Empowerment comes, like I said, with a huge amount of responsibility, because the decisions that you're making and the actions that you take are in effect going to very much influence somebody. So you better be sure that when you flaunt that empowerment around and we talk those big statements, that they're bringing positive change, that you're not talking about empowerment from a very self-centered approach. That is not the purpose of it. And I also talk about the fact that for me, empowerment and enabling are very similar things. Because whilst empowerment is a process of which you learn through many, many years of experience, enabling for me is really what the true key measure is. Because I don't see myself as just an empowerment ambassador, but I see myself as an enabler, as that medium for people to gain confidence, as that medium for people to come to for knowledge which I can transfer. And that in turn enables them. Because at the end of the day, when I'm talking and I'm coaching on leadership or empowerment, I'm always saying to the teams that I speak to that you can never be the version of me. It's great to be inspired. It's great to be empowered by all these amazing individuals. But at the end of the day, your job is to become the best version of yourself. And when you recognize that you are the best version of yourself, that is truly when you become empowered. Because that stress and tension of having to desperately want to be like somebody else means that your expectations are set and pivoted so high that it can only lead to disappointment. So when I have many people come to me and I coach, and then there's a difference, and not for today to talk about, between coaching and mentorship, but when I am guiding these individuals, that is the one advice that I'm constantly saying to them, is set yourself goals so that you are able to achieve them. And therefore you are then very motivated to be able to then achieve your ambition and dream, and which will then give you that confidence, which in turn gives you empowerment. Because we live in a world that is so fast and is so much centered about influence. And it's fascinating for me, certainly in my profession, as I've seen sort of the digital media wave happen and the power of social media take over the world, and this concept of following. which is really fascinating because, of course, individuals are like that. There are leaders and there are followers. And so my take on that is it's a great tool, let's say social media, because it allows you to reach many people. It allows you to voice your opinion. It allows you to build a community. But at the same time, it's also negative in the fact that you are sometimes following things that are not realistic, that are way beyond the means of what you can and are able to achieve. So that's why I go back to the fact that when you set yourself those realistic and stretched expectations, but becoming the best version of you is what you should be looking for. And when you recognize that, is like I said, when you will become empowered and then in turn be able to make a difference to someone else. And that's why I also talk about that responsibility, because very few people also recognize that everything we do and everything we say impacts everybody around us. And you'll know in a working environment, for example, you'll walk into an office one day and maybe you're not just feeling great and you're not in a great mood and you just had a rough day, and immediately that energy in that room changes. Immediately. But if you walk into that space and you're energetic and powerful and dynamic and you're feeling great, immediately that positive momentum. So we sometimes give little thought to how we convey ourselves and how we come across. And so as empowerment ambassadors, or again, going back to the subject of what empowerment means, that means sometimes you have to shut down, and if you're wanting to empower, it means to motivate and to inspire, which sometimes means that you have to put a lid on some of your feelings in order to generate that positive momentum. And that's not easy. That's not easy. People ask me a lot, Asil, why are you, I'm recognized for being a turnaround expert or a restructure person. So organizations will come to me, and usually when they have big problems and they need fixing, and I'm that go-to person who fixes it. And a lot of people ask me many times, why do you do that? Why can't you just go and get, a simple job that pays nicely, get a great role, and sort of sit there and not have to clean up and fix? Isn't that exhausting? You put 18 hours a day, 16, you put your heart and soul. Why do you do it? And for me, the really only reason I will go into an organization is because I know that I can impact every single individual's lives. There's nothing more empowering than going to a business, whether it has 50 people or 3,000 people, and you're seeing that they are demotivated, they lackluster, they're not inspired, they don't particularly love their job, and they certainly don't love the company that they're in, and they've gone through a lot of turbulence. And then you come in and you know that once you give them autonomy, once you showcase that respect, once you're building the trust, and once you motivate them and hopefully inspire them and definitely empower them to do their job and contribute, there's nothing more exciting than seeing 500, 1,000, 3,000, or 50 people's faces and livelihoods change. It's not the thrill of tripling and quadrupling profits like people assume that's why I do it. The reason I achieve those profits is as a consequence of the motivated and inspired and empowered teams. Because people come first, profits later. Well, certainly for me. So that's why I spend so much time in my roles and in any role that I have, truly empowering and truly respecting. And I've been in organizations where I have spent weeks and weeks from one country to another, day in and day out in a plane, so that I can meet every single individual in that person, in that organization, knowing that I can't make a change unless there's buy-in from however many people are in that business. And I know that by speaking to them and by explaining to them and changing their mindset and enabling them and empowering them, that we can make that difference. So like I said, whether you're empowering yourself, which means you're arming yourself with knowledge, with the right tools, with passion, with confidence, or whether you're enabling and empowering many people around you, the most important thing is, for me, that sense of humility and the groundness and that humble approach that you have. Because I've also met many people who believe they are empowering, but as a matter of fact, not really. Because they're coming across so arrogant and so overzealous and so confident that actually it's push, push, push. Which brings me to another subject, because empowering, the biggest challenge about empowerment is listening and self-awareness. Let me tell you, if you can master those two, then you're definitely going to be an empowerment ambassador. Because empowering, unlike today where I'm just talking at you, which is not the norm because I usually like to engage with people and have them talk with me, it is not about pushing your thoughts. It is not about just talking about your opinion or what matters from your perspective. When you empower an individual, that means you have to listen, because without listening to what it is that is their challenge or their pressure or their tension or what they want to learn, then you're not going to be able to do your job. So listening is a huge, huge part of empowering. Then the second one is that self-awareness, which I spoke about. And let me tell you, it's taken me 30 years. And it is tough because self-awareness comes from critique, listening to constructive criticism, right? I mean, that's the difference. When people are critiquing you just for the sake of it negatively, you brush that away. But if you want to truly be empowered, then you have to be open and understand your faults, recognize your weaknesses and strengths, and understand your capability and have that self-awareness to be able to, and I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face because it is very, very, very difficult to sort of bite your tongue and listen to someone, critiquing you or giving you feedback. And especially, as you progress in your career and, you become sort of assistant manager to director to leadership to and then of course so many people think that through this progress that they sort of have earned that right not to listen to critiquing because I've done it really great and I've done a great job, and what could you possibly critique because I've now achieved and I've now landed that big role. But actually, trust me, if you do listen and you accept that and you are self-aware, then not only are you going to be able to become hugely empowered as an individual because you have no barriers. Your guard is down and it is what it is, and you're very comfortable with yourself. That is true empowerment. And for me, it's my way of bridging the gap between a younger generation and an older generation and transferring that knowledge and showing them, that through hard work and inspiration and role models, you can achieve anything that you put your mind and goal to. You can truly, there's nothing that stops you as long as you're armed with humility, respect, dignity, belief, and values. If you have that as your foundation, people, trust me, that is empowerment. And when I'm participating in incredible platforms like Muslim Changemakers, how inspiring is that for me to become part of this and to be able to sort of share my knowledge and my vision. And this in turn, is very much enabling me to realize my legacy. So it's platforms, it's the joint efforts, it's collaborations like this, it's bringing people to my platform and being on somebody else's platform that then enables me. So I think, if I were to summarize, because I would really, and I don't know if it's possible at all, to really kind of open up to the audience and see if they're, I'd love to hear what other people's perception of empowerment is, what they have, you know, succeeded in, or what maybe have been challenges for them, and to kind of listen to them a little bit. But if I were to summarize, you know, you asked me to talk about empowerment today, and I think if I were to sort of summarize what that means, for me, empowerment comes from that innate ability to have a grounded respect for every individual that I have ever come across, and then have that empathy and humility to be able to then guide them and enable them to realize their dreams. So that for me is, you know, what empowerment means. And I'd love to see, you know, or have a dialogue with whoever's listening, because I can't see who's listening or who's there. So Marta, I don't know if there's, you know, if we can sort of ask questions, or who's actually listening, or if there's a Q&A.
Yes, so there is a, I'm sorry, I just got a little bit sick the last couple of days, so my voice is gone. But I have just asked in the chat box for all the people who are listening, that please feel free to drop any kind of questions in the chat box or in the Q&A box. And as Asil said, she'd be more than happy to answer your questions or comment on your experiences. So please, please share. It's very easy. It's just a question of typing the question, and we will be able to share it with Asil, and you will get a special answer from an amazing and an inspiring role model of our times.
Thank you so much. I think, you know, they need to be empowered to ask. It's very interesting when I ask people in an audience, you know, do you have any questions? And they typically have, you know, thousands of questions that are going on through their mind, but for some reason or other, people find it very difficult to, you know, ask questions. And so I'm not so sure why. I think most of the time is people think, well, is my question sort of really worth asking, or I'm kind of embarrassed, or maybe I asked something that I shouldn't, or somebody else has an answer for it, and maybe I sound a little bit silly. But the other thing on that specific point about asking questions is the other most empowering thing that you could do, because I didn't achieve my career and I didn't gain the knowledge that I did by not asking questions, by not being curious, by not being inquisitive. That's not how I learned. And I was the first one to put my hand up in any meeting when I had, you know, my managers, and not be afraid, because guess what? I didn't really care. I literally didn't know something. Now, if I didn't know it, then that's perfect. I needed the answer. So I encourage everyone who's, you know, part of your Muslim Changemakers to really ask questions. You have an opportunity where you're sitting in front of 50 of some of the most inspiring Muslim changemakers. Guys, you need to ask questions.
So here comes the first one. Here
Awesome.
comes the first one.
Okay.
Sorry for my voice.
How do you stay true to your values in the long term and maintain this empowering state through challenges? So I'm going to repeat that. So the question is, how do you, so this is from Fatima. Assalamu alaikum, Fatima. So how do you stay true to your values in the long term and maintain this empowering state through challenges? Well, let me tell you something, Fatima. The only, and I truly, hand on heart, the only way I have maintained this is through my iman. It's simple. There's nothing more elaborate that I can add to that. There's nothing more that I can say other than, you know, my iman throughout my entire life, personal and business, has truly kept me in, you know, kept me intact and kept me sane, and allowed me to manage the many challenges. I mean, we don't even have enough days in the calendar to talk to you about, you know, just the many challenges as every individual faces in their life, you know, on both personal and professional. And so for me, it's like I said throughout the conversation, you know, my iman really guides my decision. And, you know, I've left businesses. I have not accepted roles. I have challenged businesses, simply because, my faith, for me, it's about Sirat al-Mustaqim and nothing dents that. And so, that's what grounds me. So I hope that's answered it. Yeah. Good question, though. It's not easy.
Definitely. I also agree with you that I think curiosity is also key to learning. And by being curious, you have to be always alert, because you can be curious, but you have to be obviously focusing on the path that you would like to follow. And the curiosity should be helping you to pave that path. And you have to recognize what are the elements that you might need to paving that path.
Yes, I mean, like to be inquisitive and to want to learn. This is your strength, right? Knowledge.
Exactly.
Knowledge.
That's what we also. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that knowledge is, one of the most empowering things, because that's what, you have to invest. That's investment in yourself. To have knowledge and to have a broader understanding of things, and to be able to have conversations that are of a broader spectrum. That's what I alluded to earlier, which means that, I earned these roles through merit, through knowledge, through experience. And that means you have to put out, you have to give a lot to be able to gain, you work tremendously hard, and you have to have determination and ambition to gain that knowledge, which in turn gives you confidence. You can't win if you have no confidence, and confidence comes from that knowledge. Yeah.
There's a next question is coming up. How can you be brave?
How are you brave?
Yeah.
How are you brave to start to speak while you're an introvert? Please apologize for my grammar. I'm not fluent in English. Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum assalam to the anonymous attendee. That is a personality trait, right? I mean, being an introvert, they call it ambivert, which I just recently learned from someone interviewing me. They said that's called an ambivert, where you are both introvert and extrovert. So for me, I think maybe because I am a Gemini, who knows? I do have these different sides. And I think, also joking aside, that's why, you see the 7 different colors on in Turban Thinker, under Thinker, because each color represents one of my passions and personalities. And I've been accused of having like multiple brains under the turban, so hence Turban Thinker. But I think because truly I do have that, I guess, left and right brain. Let's talk about that. It's the hybrid of left and right, which allows me to, one, be completely introvert and people phobic, believe it or not, but at the same time, I could stand up in an audience of 50,000 people in a conference and belt it out without rehearsing, without writing, without listening to Q&A, nothing. I just go on and do it because I speak from my passion. And because, to answer your question, how are you brave to speak? Because I don't ever rehearse, believe it or not. I mean, literally 5 minutes before, and that drives sometimes my teams crazy, because they're like, you haven't read the questions. I just always say, what's the subject? That's all I need. What subject and what time, and I'll be there. And when I get on, I talk from the heart. It just comes out. It's not rehearsed. I'm not busy thinking, oh, what did I say in the second paragraph? No, if you get up and you talk from the heart and you think with your mind, then you're good. So you're going to be just as brave, because it's not rehearsed. Right? It's just honest, direct, pure from the heart. So then Fatma asks, Fatma, I think you're my #1 fan, right? So, and I'm a #1 fan of yours. So throughout your experience, how your social environment has impacted your success in life. How has my social environment impacted my success in life? Well, my social environment, it's funny because I don't know what capacity you're asking that. Like I said, I'm very private. Genuinely, Fatma, I don't actually have a social environment. Now, Marta would know that. I don't. So I'm not a social butterfly. I don't interact with many people. I don't go out to many events. I don't go to people's houses. I don't hang out. I have very few friends that I will have a coffee or a dinner and family. But so social environment, for the actual definition of social environment, but of course I'm very informed and very part of the world, and of course the nature of my job and jobs has been, so that's why I probably am so private, because my work and the jobs that I've held are constantly with people, constantly in a social environment, and they've impacted me in two ways. They've impacted me because they've taught me what not to do. So like I said, I've learned two things in my career. I've been fortunate to have amazing inspirational people, which I have by default learned from, because I've never really had a coach or mentor, but I've learned by default from some incredible characters. And then at the same time, I've learned what not to do by some really not so pleasant characters. So I think that interaction, has taught me, have been able to sort of learn from those both elements. But the most important thing socially, what I love when I do, especially in my jobs, because there's thousands of people that, I am involved with in an organization, my best moment is when I'm actually with them. Like if it's retail, being on the shop floor, being with my teams, being with my customers. So that human engagement, that emotional intelligence that I have is come purely from that social. So I'm not a social butterfly as in events and things like that, but I'm very social when it comes to driving a purpose. Purpose is very important in empowerment, or making sure that I know my presence, if I'm a CEO of a company, with my retail team, with my T-boy, cleaning the store, cleaning the floors, wiping the windows, motivating them. I started out on the shop floor. That social engagement and emotional intelligence is what has empowered me and I've learned from. Anonymous attendee, how could you find your strength in yourself, and how can we impact Muslims in our environment? You find the strength in yourself by your faith, which I constantly refer to. Of course, that is where you find your inner strength, truly your inner strength. And then the other thing is you must surround yourself by people that are like-minded and that bring you that positive energy. You have to surround yourself by people that believe in you, that support you, that drive your confidence. Because if you are in an environment where you are constantly told you're not good enough, or that you can't achieve, or why are you going for that? Stick to your, whatever job you're doing. When your passion lies with something else, then that's going to be a struggle, because I truly believe that you have to do what your job, whatever it is in life, your purpose has to be something that is led by your passion. And in order to really bring out that passion, you have to really find one or two, and there are people out there, they might not be your immediate. That's why coaching and mentoring is such an important thing, because trust me, even on LinkedIn, you might not know somebody, but if you're inspired, you drop them a note and say, you're incredible, you're inspiring, can I learn from you? You'd be really surprised. So I'm not talking about just surrounding yourself, if your immediate family, or if you're not aligned in your thinking with your friends. No, you go out there and you find those that you're most likely to connect with, that are on par with what you want to, and your ambition and your ideas, and you connect to them, and they're the ones that will give you that strength as well. So Iman and people around you to inspire you and to push you to achieve. Yeah, I think that's it, right?
Well, I'm sure there's a lot more people listening, so I would really like to ask you, use this occasion, very special occasion, to ask Asil these questions. As she said, she's not around 100%.
Oh, so, Marta, your voice, bless you. No, I'm not, sorry. Exactly. Yeah. So of course, definitely. I'm trying to speak for you because I don't want you to use your...
Thank you.
So, yes, you just feel free, to ask questions and not really be shy about asking questions. Look, we had an anonymous attendee whose English wasn't that great asking 2 questions, so that's brilliant. But I think, again, just to maybe to summarize Marta, and all the listeners, you know, empowerment, and I know today you're going to be speaking just after this about empowerment again, and it's such an important subject, you know, and I do believe that people misunderstand, you know, what empowerment means, and they sort of link it to you're only empowered if you're loud and you have this big presence and you have this huge amount of confidence. But empowerment comes from the, you know, the quietest of people, you know. It's not a characteristic, if you know what I'm trying to say. To be empowered doesn't mean you have to go around and hold your head and no, you know, you could be the most gentlest, quietest of people and empower so many in a quiet way, you know, and then you can be that confident person as well. So I guess, you know, for me, it's finding, that's why I say, if you recognize who you are and trying to be the best person for yourself and the best version, then you'll know in your personality what empowerment means to you. And that's why I led today's conversation by saying, this is what empowerment means for me. This might not necessarily be something that somebody else has an opinion on, and they see it differently. But from my personal perspective and from my career and from my upbringing and everything that's influenced me, you know, that's why I said empowerment for me is about empathy, respect, humility, knowledge, trust. Those are the things that, you know, make it up for me specifically. What is empowerment for you, Marta? So, you know, you can type it, you don't have to say it.
No, I will. I take one sip of my tea.
Yes, that's a good idea.
I hope it helps. But I think I totally agree with you. Empowerment comes from a true, passionate person where the empowerment is rooted deeply in that person. Because if you don't have it in yourself, you will never be able to empower others. If you have not found that treasure in yourself, if you have not found the way to transmit it and shine the light literally to others, or simply lifting them up, because by listening to people, you lift them up. Once you lift people up, they feel empowered. They feel that they have a voice. They feel that they can also make a change, and they are important. And it can be just the smallest things that you can do to a person. By giving a tiny compliment can mean a world to someone.
Yeah. Just a thank you.
Exactly.
And a please.
Exactly. And with that recognition, or just with that encouragement, just with very simple acts of kindness, you will be able to make people feel good about themselves, make people feel embraced. And exactly what Asil was telling about herself, she surrounds herself with people who care for her, who believe in her, and be that one person.
And trust me, you know, equally, I've been surrounded, you know, and we don't have enough hours or today to talk about, you know, the people that didn't believe in me. The people, and I'm not talking about when I was young, I'm talking about throughout my career, and even at an older part of my career, where I have been told, you know, that you don't understand what you're talking about. You know, you know nothing. Let me ask, blatantly, you know, bullied and all sorts of things, you know, that would be great to have another conversation on that, because again, you know, nothing is flowery, and you receive a lot of rejection and a lot of things where you're scratching your head and you're just, I don't understand why am I, you know, confronted by this sort of behavior. But that's what you have to then, you know, to counterbalance, because life is balance. You will have that. But then if you go to the people that truly support you, they sort of dampen that, because it's hugely demotivating, you know. And if you're constantly in a position where you don't have that voice or support, then that becomes an issue. But it's okay, you can handle it when you're, if I've been put down, and I have been many situations, but I know that I can then go to someone who says, are you crazy? Of course not. Believe in yourself. You know, you're this, you're that, you're capable. So there's another really interesting question, which is what I live for, is like really empowering young individuals. And so she says, Marina Rus, I hope, Rozsa. She says, Salam alaikum, sister. How do you discover what do you want to do in life as a teen? And how do you stay focused on your dreams and goals? Let me tell you something. If I knew what I wanted to do as a teen, but in fairness, you know, I mean, my goodness, as a teenager, you're going through so many different complexities and so many thoughts. And for, you know, so my answer to that is you find your way. And you can only find your way by trialing and experiencing and putting yourself out there and finding your passion. Because, you know, when I was young, I had a very different idea of what I wanted to be. You know, I studied interior design initially, and I had a whole other thing. And then life and experience and people and circumstance leads you something else. So, but it all started with, you know, my knowledge and passion for one thing. So, you know, in yourself, you do know at whatever age that you are passionate, whatever it might be, passionate about numbers, passionate about art, passionate about geography, history, maths, whatever, passionate about thinking, staring out of a window. You know what? Then that means you're probably going to be an author. You know, so if you have a fabulous imagination, there's many, but you have to focus truly at whatever age and recognize. If you recognize that ability and listen to what people might, you know, you might desperately sometimes want to be a financial, you know, advisor, but you actually are amazing artists. Sometimes also you might think, because my husband's always saying, you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes, you know, your environment dictates that you need to be a certain thing or you should study a certain thing, but actually your passion and your heart is something else. So what you need to do is try to really focus, and you know that at whatever age, you know, my passion is art, my passion is design, my passion is reading, my passion is writing, cooking, whatever it is. And once you recognize, that's when you can start to really feed that through knowledge and learning and experience and doing short courses or doing things maybe outside of your, you know, typical school day, and investing into that passion. Because trust me, when you do something you love, you will become successful at it. So you just have to really be honest and true to yourself and say, actually, this is what I really, really, really love. And sometimes what's difficult is convincing others, because we're in a society where we have a lot of pressure and we need to sometimes conform to a certain type of individual. But if you have a great case and you are so passionate and you're just showcasing, then you have to fight for that, right? You have to, you know, really show the passion that, you know, people might think I'm this, but I really think I could do amazing things with this. And like I said, then you have to personally invest in that to keep nourishing and nurturing it so that it truly becomes something that you can do with passion and success. I think that's takes us nicely, I think, right, to our time. We've got 1 minute.
Yes, so ladies, just and gentlemen, whoever is in the audience, the chance for your last question. Please ask if there is anything that you would like to know. But in the meantime, I definitely want to say that, Asil, it has been a pleasure to have you, because your sharing your personal story, I think it gives a lot of ideas, guidance to a lot of people, you know, how to look at their own lives and how to maybe re-evaluate what they are doing, because it's you know, there's no one recipe for all.
No, and also, you know, you have to recognize that nobody's perfect, right? None of us are perfect. We can only try to do the best that we can with what we have, right? And I think, you know, when you recognize that, there's a huge pressure that's relieved, because you then, like I said, it's those, you know, ambitious but realistic and exciting things that you set yourself, and not these, you know, not everyone's going to be a Bill Gates, not everybody's going to be these, you know, ridiculous Steve Jobs. You know, they might inspire you, but the world isn't built like that, and nobody's perfect, and everybody has flaws. But that for me, that's why I keep saying that for me is empowerment. When you recognize that your potential, when you recognize your self-worth, when you recognize that you are capable, when you recognize that there's nothing that can stop you from achieving truly other than yourself, right? Especially in the world that we live in, we have everything on the internet. You can have so much knowledge, learning constantly. You know, at a swipe, you can have so much, you have access to so much more knowledge. I used to have to go to the library and read books, you know? I mean, I didn't have it at the touch of a phone, my goodness. So now you have all of these amazing tools, but you have to use them wisely. And you have to recognize, you know, like I said, nobody's perfect. You do the best that you can do for what you're able to do. And trust me, with passion, you can achieve. Really, it's not a cliche. All right, so we end it here. Thank you so much, Marta. Truly, really, I mean, lovely to be here again, and so inspiring to be on Muslim Changemakers. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Asil. And ladies and gentlemen, please follow Asil on Instagram, Asil Attar.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you to everybody who tuned in.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you, Fawzia. Take care.
Thank you. It was an honor having you. Thank you.
My pleasure. My honor. Thank you. Assalam.